Okay, so everybody's showing off their home, and Cliff Kingsbury wins. It's over. He had the number one pick in last year's draft, and his house is the number one pick of this year's draft. That is a sweet, sweet setup to say the least. That one was top of the charts when we got a tour of everyone's homes yesterday. As we welcome you back to Lunch Talk Live, Patrick Mahomes, just letting the coach know, hey, I used to know you back from the Texas Tech days, trying to have a crib like yours. I think, Patrick, you can pretty much get whatever you want. Michelle Tafoya will join us now as we continue the draft conversation. For a second, Michelle, I wanted to zoom in and see if it was Matthew McConaughey in that Kingsbury. That looked like a scene out of a movie when that showed up last night.
I know. It was cool. Every time I see that, I just go, whoa! It takes your breath away. Arizona living. Michelle, I don't know if you've noticed this too. I was getting a laugh. I felt like after early on, some of the GMs and coaches had their kids come to the background of their shot after the pick was made. That was free reign for every kid. You've got to let me come in now, Dad. I saw somebody else's kids. I'm coming into your shot now too. I know. I wanted to see more dogs too. Abby, the dog that who was Abby the dog helping out, and then Abby didn't show up for the draft. I was very disappointed. Who was that? Who had the dog on his lap, and then now we're all spacing.
The Raiders tweeted out Gruden's dog. I know the Raiders tweeted out Gruden and his dog before the draft. I saw that. I forget who Abby was. I'll think of it here in a couple of minutes. I thought it was fun. It was interesting. Of course, Mike Zimmer had the full hunting display. It was all really fun to see. I don't know, Michelle. I said to Tony and Rodney, I felt like all those cameras being at homes and in individual places, I felt like we got more reactions of watching the people making the draft and the picks than we ever did before. It kind of made it almost a connection with what we're all doing right now in a better way than I imagined it was going to be.
Totally agree with you. And I also was pretty impressed that, at least from what I saw, there really weren't many glitches at all. And I thought that was pretty impressive given how many people they were integrating into this whole thing. So, but I agree with you. It was kind of cool to see everyone's different setup. It just humanized these coaches and GMs a little bit more. And of course, Charlotte Jones wearing her typical blue. I I don't know if I've ever seen her not wear blue.
Blue. That's a good point. I never thought about that. I might, since this is a 2-hour show today, I might pull a Goodell. I may change halfway through, like the commissioner did last night when he went from the sport jacket to the sweater. All right, let me get to the. I've got a wardrobe closet about 10 feet away. Maybe I'll do it. All right, Michelle, let's get to the top two picks. And let's go Joe Burrow, because we talked about the stories in the draft with Rodney and Tony, but we had kind of cemented this Joe Burrow pick was going to happen. It's still really almost breathtaking to step back and just see what these 5 months have been for that kid, culminating with last night, the number one overall selection.
You know, when I looked at Pro Football Focus and their kind of analysis of the draft and the things they said about Joe Burrow, I've never seen Pro Football Focus say before. And it was stunning to me just how sure they are of this guy and how they had never evaluated a prospect for quarterback the way that they had evaluated him, never as high. And that to me is astonishing, not because it surprises me, but, you know, Mike, we're always hearing about these generational players, and particularly when it comes to quarterbacks. And very often they don't really pan out. I mean, more often than not, they don't really pan out the way everyone thought they might. I hope there's not too much pressure on this guy. They're calling him Brady 2.0 and all the rest. I really hope, because, you know, they say he's so calm and manages every situation. I hope this one is no different for him, because look, I watched this one and I want to gush, but you know, the amount of attention he's gotten, the way this guy plays, the comparisons they're making to Brady. He's stepping into a system in Cincinnati that hasn't had a lot of success. It's just going to be fascinating to watch, and I'm pulling for the kid.
Yeah, there's a realness about him as well, and then you go, well, he had all that talent around him at LSU. Of course he was going to be really good, but then when you see pretty much half the first round was SEC players. We're going to see another run on SEC players on the defensive side coming up in the next little bit. And he made every throw, and the throws were accurate. And I'm with you on the Pro Football Focus reaction to Burrow. And by the way, the PFF guys had an awesome chat room going during the draft, breaking down a lot of the stuff you're talking about with every pick. I really enjoyed that as one of the 83 things I was watching up here in the office last night. Then Washington goes right where we thought they were going to go, and they go with Chase Young, who is in a similar vein, Michelle, when you start to read and watch everything that's been said about Chase Young, the Ohio State edge rusher.
And it's kind of neat because you've got one who's maybe generational on the offensive side and one who's maybe generational on the defensive side. And it's, this is another kid you want to pull for. Again, they've made comparisons to Jadeveon Clowney. They've talked about this guy as being, you know, a sensational defender. But I got to believe Washington is so excited about this kid, and Ron Rivera getting to take this guy and mold him into his defense. It's these two picks. I know it's a kind of an obvious topic, Mike, but these two picks, to me, more than anything, could define this draft. And I mean, certainly there's going to be a lot coming up here later on. There's a lot of talent left on the board, and teams are going to start doing interesting things with that talent. But to see two players who could have impact immediately and see where they take their careers. We've seen a lot of busts in the past. I don't think these guys are going to be busts, and I think it's going to be really, really fun to watch their development at the next level.
You're around Minnesota and the Vikings a lot. Their pick of Justin Jefferson at 22 adds another receiver and playmaking opportunity for Kirk Cousins that could really be a significant impact in a division that had a couple of interesting selections last night.
Yeah, I mean, it did. But I do think that this is a good pick for the Vikings. They needed depth there. They needed not even just depth. They needed someone to replace Stephon Diggs, obviously, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
It interested me, Mike, that there were so many tremendous wide receivers available, but it seems like the run was at corner, and I thought we were going to see more receivers go in the first round. What did you think about that?
Yeah, the corners coming later. You know, I mentioned Brent Musburger was on with us on Wednesday, and he put 5.5 was the Vegas line on wide receivers, and 6 of them go. But those corners,
Musburger brought up
Michelle,
the line?
it just kind of makes sense if we're in such a. Yes, he did. He gave us about 5 in 8 seconds. It was only Brent Ken, too. The passing game, I mentioned this with Rodney and Tony, really 3/4 of the first round were spent on quarterbacks, wide receivers, corners, or offensive tackles and edge rushers. Those are essentially, and I know offensive tackles obviously run block every once in a while, but it is a passing game league. And when 24 of the 32 first-round picks, your most valuable chip in building a team, when they are taken there, it just tells you one thing. Defend the pass, be able to pass the ball effectively. It's going to give you a chance everywhere. And that's one thing I want to leave you with. The reaction for Aaron Rodgers is going to be really interesting to watch over the next couple of months, couple of years, really, when he sees what happened to him before, on the other side, happened now with Jordan Love's pick by Green Bay.
Yeah, it is. You know, I had a really interesting sit down with Aaron Rodgers a couple summers ago for a magazine I contribute to. And he talked about that waiting game at the draft as being maybe the single most important thing to his career that ever happened to him. And but you're right. This is going to be a really interesting time for Green Bay. That whole quarterback history in Green Bay is just something of fascination. And I would really like someone to write the definitive book and interview all of them really in depth. Maybe I'll do that. I got time on my hands.
Well, I was just gonna say, you know, I mean, you're a TV star, Hall of Fame TV reporter, radio star for many, many years, magazine writer, just add book writer. It's multimedia Michelle Tafoya.
I don't know if I could write a book, but I certainly have the topics. Someone would have to sit and help me.
You do. I think you'd be just fine. Thanks, Michelle. Enjoy. We'll talk to you down the road.
Great to talk to you.
Okay, great to have our whole Sunday Night Football family checking in on the draft. We're going to talk to some of the draftees as well. Brandon Ayuk, drafted by the 49ers, receiver, coming up after this. Stay with us. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.